Hello and welcome back to the SaaS Marketing Weekly podcast with me, your host Ryan, the founder of Rocket SaaS. And today we are back in the studio with our most popular, arguably our most popular guest, Jamie Skills, back in the building.
Back in the studio.
How are you feeling? Ready for another pod?
Yeah, great. I'm ready. It's been a while, actually.
I think this is going to be your fourth or fifth episode, maybe.
This will be the fourth, I think.
We're getting very good feedback about you.
But it's been a few weeks, so I've got to get the rust off now.
Okay. Well, we've had very good comments about you being a guest, so happy to get you back. And we are going to be going through LinkedIn ads. This is going to be a 3-part mini series. I know that pretty much all B2B SaaS brands are either doing LinkedIn ads, have done it in the past and it's not worked, want to be doing it, know they should be doing it. So many businesses are struggling to get results. Jamie is a master at LinkedIn ads. To give Jamie a better introduction, actually, if you don't know him, he was the I don't even know what it was.
Senior demand generation.
He was the senior demand generation manager here at Rocket SaaS, and congratulations to Jamie. He's recently been promoted to our head of strategy. So Jamie is got a brilliant strategic marketing mind. Worked with Rocket SaaS for about 6 months or so, and I decided I wanted to promote him to get his strategic insight across all of our clients, not just the few clients that he was managing. So congrats on that, Jamie.
Thanks very much.
Well deserved.
Very exciting.
And hopefully we're going to extract some of that brilliant marketing mind that you've got and teach our audience about LinkedIn ads and how we can get better performance. So it's going to be a 3-part series. Part 1, we're going to start the kind of fundamentals about what types of ads you can be creating, the content formats, the types of ads that we're seeing working in B2B SaaS, also the content that needs to back up and support the ads. That's really important. And then part 2 next week is going to get a bit more technical into targeting, retargeting, layering on intent data using tools like Clay, exporting information from external platforms like Apollo, Cognism, rather than just using the LinkedIn ad filters. And then part 3 is going to be talking about optimizing your campaigns. So after your campaigns are up and running, what do you need to monitor to optimize to improve performance? So that is our 3-part mini series.
All the fun stuff.
All the fun stuff. And this could transform your marketing. I know a lot of people are struggling, like I said, with the B2B, with the LinkedIn ads, and getting this right can just really scale your business. So, part 1, the different types of ads that a B2B SaaS brand should be creating, the different content formats. I think we're going to be breaking it into the funnel, aren't we? So top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of the funnel.
Yeah.
So I guess I can start by saying that most B2B SaaS brands, definitely a lot of startups, even a lot of scale-up companies, they kind of only do bottom of the funnel ads. They only do ads that say, we're a great platform. Here's a picture of the platform. Sign up for a demo today.
Buy my stuff.
But you've never heard of me before, but here's a platform. Book a demo now. It's the reason Jamie's laughing. Because
you see it all the time.
You see it all the time, and unfortunately, it doesn't work. It's not quite as simple as that. Think about yourself, think about your psychology. And when you browse LinkedIn, if you have never, ever heard of a brand before, you've never seen this platform before, and you just see an advert that says book a demo of this cybersecurity platform, you're not going to do it. It's not going to be enough. You need to go through much more of a journey, many more touch points with the brand. You need to know, trust that brand. It could take months before they are actually going to book a demo. So we're going to go through all of that. So tell us, what is the top of the funnel? What sort of ads should you be creating at the top of the funnel? Let's get into it.
Yeah. So I think when we kind of talked about it, this would seem like the most logical way to kind of break it down, was kind of break it into stages. So I suppose starting from the very top, I think if I start with kind of like, what's the goal of a top of funnel campaign on LinkedIn and the top of funnel content that's attached to that campaign. So I think the way that I would think about this is that at the top of the funnel, these are people who probably have never heard of you before. They've never had any sort of touch point with the brand. They're probably completely unaware of what you do. Maybe they are, but most likely they're not. Never had any kind of touch point. From my point of view, the goal of these campaigns is one, just making them aware of who you are. That's kind of just a core part of marketing. We need people to be aware of who we are before they can buy us, and just be aware of our existence. And then 2, once we've actually made that person aware of who we are, we also want them to associate us with the problems that they need solving, and the problems that we solve, basically. So I think for 90% of like B2B SaaS brands, in terms of accomplishing those goals, in terms of making people aware of you and getting you associated with specific problems that you can solve, you're going to do that through the medium of educational content. So for 90% of SaaS brands, this kind of really standard top of funnel stuff is creating educational content that's connected to the problems that your business solves and addressing those problems in your content. So you can, one, create a touch point for them to become aware of who you are, and two, for them to start associating you with those problems.
Yeah. So creating ads that help people solve a problem.
Yes.
So the key thing is that people don't know your brand, but they do know the problem that your brand solves. So if they start seeing an ad that's bottom of the funnel for a brand they've never heard of, they're going to scroll right past it. But if they start seeing an ad from a brand that they've never heard of, but it's talking about a problem that is on their mind, keeping them up at night, they're worried about losing their job. If they don't fix this problem, they're likely to stop and actually engage with the ad.
Yeah.
Is that the...
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just starting with like, there's like some people might have seen like stages of awareness previously, where you go from kind of like, it's just a helpful kind of mental model of like going from kind of unaware to problem aware to solution aware to ready to buy, etc. I think with the top of funnel content, what you're trying to do is you're trying to reach people who are either problem aware or completely unaware, and you're creating content that's about the problem and how you solve that problem. Because ultimately, like you just mentioned, like for 90, we've talked about this on the pod before, but 95% of people, they're not ready to buy a software like just in their day-to-day lives, like not for, unless there's a specific need in the business that happens probably once every like few months or years. So what we need to do is create content that speaks to the problems they have in their business, specifically the problems that our business solves for. And what that's going to do is we're going to be able to provide value to that buyer, and be able to educate them about the problems that we solve, and also make them aware of us, stay front of mind with that buyer. So when they are ready to buy, obviously we can be front of mind, and they're going to more likely think of us when they actually move in market.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So for example, if you had a HR SaaS platform, and let's say you were targeting enterprise businesses with like thousands of employees, and one of their problems was, say the HR manager had a problem that they were losing too many of their staff. Staff were handing, like 10 people a month were handing in their notice, and it was just causing them absolute chaos. They obviously want to solve that problem. That's a massive problem that's keeping them up at night, rather than just going straight for the kill, being like, we're a HR platform that can help you, blah, blah, blah. It's you create ads that talks about addressing the problem and teaching people how to solve that problem. So maybe it's linking to a blog or a video or a guide. Like if your business is suffering from employee churn, read this article, watch this video, here's a helpful piece of advice.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Exactly. So that's the kind. There's all different types of mediums and content like formats that we can go down. Like the core concept still remains that we need to be talking about the problems that they solve, and the problems are connected back into our business, what our business solves for. But then that's where LinkedIn comes in. This is where I think LinkedIn can be incredibly powerful and is its main function as an ad platform. LinkedIn is best used as a content amplification tool to the exact buyers that you want to reach. It is the most targeted platform for B2B anywhere. It's the only one that has the targeting capabilities that it does have. You can reach your exact buyer with real precision in terms of like general firmographics, like industry, location, company headcounts, etc.
Job title,
yeah, etc. Exactly. So it's really targeted. So what its real power is that when you have content at the top of the funnel, you can guarantee distribution to those people. And then there's lots of different formats within LinkedIn, lots of different types of ads that you can deliver that content to them through. And probably we can get onto that now as a little bit of like what different types of ads. Once I actually have my content, if I have a guide or I have a video I've created or a quiz, whatever that content is, we can probably talk a little bit about kind of the different types of ads to distribute that content.
Yeah. So before we get into that, let's actually define the goal of the top of the funnel ads.
Yeah.
Because my understanding is that top of the funnel, you're not actually measuring for conversions. I mean, would you say that getting conversions, a conversion being a booking a demo or a free trial sign up or a sales call being booked, that's kind of like a bonus. Like if that comes from a top of the funnel ad, then that's a bonus, but that's not actually what we're driving for. For those of you that are familiar with LinkedIn ads, we'll get to the conversion when we do the retargeting and get people down to the bottom of the funnel, which we're going to get to in a minute. But what is the goal of the top of the funnel?
Yeah. So from my point of view, the goal of a top of funnel ad is purely to basically be that first touch point for a buyer, and to make them aware. And there's lots of different ways to kind of like talk about what the end result is. Some people call it mental availability. Some people call it stay in front of mind. Ultimately, what we're trying to do with top of funnel ads is make them aware of who we are, and build memory structures that make it easier for them to recall us in future, and stay front of mind with that buyer, basically.
So you're measuring that based on clicks, resulting in website visits, from the right audience, from the right ICP, and that's enough for you because you know that's building up a retargeting pool.
All depends on kind of your internal business and the way that your marketing's measured. Like for a lot of businesses in SaaS, it's not going to be like, for example, I worked at Cognizant where we were running an ungated content play. So our top of funnel ads and our top of funnel campaigns, we weren't measuring our top of funnel campaign success based on things like downloads or like people submitting forms. We were looking at things like the number of people who are actually clicking through to the content. If that content was being consumed, looking at things like time on page, looking at video completion rates. Ultimately, what we're trying to do with that content is get it out there and get it consumed. That's what we were doing from like an ungated content perspective. Obviously, for some businesses, that might not be possible just by the nature of their model and what they're measured on, but you still can run top of funnel content that's behind a gate. And you will be looking at things like downloads as an indicator that people are interested in the content. But I do still think what I'm looking at is that content being engaged with? Is it being consumed? Because ultimately, if you're creating top of funnel content, what you're trying to do is create a positive experience for the buyer that's going to make them more informed about you, about their problems, and make it more likely that they're going to buy later on.
Right. So let's get into some, we want to talk about ad types or content types.
Yeah. So I think this is quite an important one, is that like, I think when you go into LinkedIn, especially if you're not familiar with a platform, there are loads of different ads you can run. There's literally loads. So you've got like, you'll see them in LinkedIn all the time. You've got like general static ads, you've got video ads, you've got document ads, you've got carousel ads, you've got conversation ads. So I think it can be a little bit overwhelming. What I think is helpful is thinking about which ad type is optimal for each stage of the funnel, depending on what you're trying to achieve in each stage of the funnel. So at the top of the funnel, getting back to kind of where we were at. So what I find to be the most helpful at the top of the funnel, depending on what I'm trying to do. So there's usually two types of content that I'll be trying to share at the top of the funnel. One will be if the content is hosted on our website or externally, maybe it's a swipe file, maybe it's a guide, maybe it's a quiz or something that's external to LinkedIn, and we need to click away from LinkedIn to get to it. I find that the most optimal format to do that is a static image ad. A simple single static image ad. Yeah,
because I was going to ask you about that. Like, yeah, it's all very well saying what type of content for what type of campaign, but really what people want to know is what's the data, what's our experience in terms of what ads do get the most results. And a lot of clients come to us and they want carousel ads because they look nice, or they want 60-second video ads because videos are cool.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's your opinion. But I'll give you the data. I'll give you the facts of the hundreds of SaaS brand ads that we've run. It's single image ads that generally get the best results. And I'm sorry if that's a bit boring for you, but that's the data. And the reason, there is a reason behind that. You're scrolling through your LinkedIn, you're not in the buyer mindset. As you are scrolling through your LinkedIn, a lot of people on their mobile just flicking through with their thumb. They're not thinking, I'm looking for an ad. I'm looking to click on something. I'm looking to buy. You're just flicking through, you're doom scrolling. Yeah. So therefore, when a video pops up, you can't be asked to sit here for 60 seconds and watch that. I'm gone. If a carousel pops up, I can't bother to click on that 8 times to scroll through it. Single image ad, that's it. That's the whole thing there. So in like a matter of split seconds, you can consume the whole thing without, having to click on things and watch 60 seconds of a video. Everyone knows about how short attention spans are these days. That's the reason why single image ads perform the best, is because they have the minimal amount of attention span required. And that, in my opinion, is why they work.
If you're trying to get the click, I think it really boils down to as well, it's a really simple, there's a message, there's a visual, there's an action. So from that perspective, if you're trying to get someone to take immediate action, I think a static image ad can work really well, just like you said. And that's why I tend to use them, particularly for driving traffic to resources. I think they are the best, the optimal ad type. Doesn't mean you can't experiment. Listen, nothing's hard and fast rules, but I would say that 99% of the time, like you just mentioning, if you want to drive traffic to a resource, to the website, a static image ad is going to do the job. And then away from that, if the goal isn't necessarily just to drive traffic, if you're trying to kind of communicate a message in feed, maybe you've got a podcast video that you just want to be watched, or there's you've taken that video and you've turned it into a PDF kind of format. There are different ad types that can work well for that in terms of getting it consumed in feed. Things like video ads, things like carousel ads, things like document ads. They can work really well if you want the message to be just, I want to communicate a message. I want the content to appear natively in the feed and I want people to consume it there. I find that we run a lot of that Cognism. They are harder to make because ultimately the content, like you just mentioned, it's really short attention spans and you've really got to grip them. Whereas if you're just trying to drive people to a resource, you can create clever, interesting ads, I think much easier. The content will be very good if you're going to make in-feed ads. That's the challenge. So yeah, that's kind of my view on the top of the funnel is if you're going to leverage different ad types, I would leverage static single image ads 90% of the time for driving traffic. And then for in-feed ads, video, document and carousel ads.
Yeah. And then in terms of running top of the funnel ads, you can't really run top of the funnel ads unless you've got content to back it up. So for example, if you are creating content to help people solve a problem, like you've just talked about, you can't just have a single image ad that's got a short header that helps them solve the problem. They have to click on that and it takes them somewhere. And it obviously can't take them to the homepage of your website because that won't be all about how to solve the problem. It needs to take people to a content asset. So let's talk about different types of content assets that you need to drive people to, because before you launch these ads, you need obviously the content to be published first. So yeah, there is an order that you need to do things. So what sort of content should you be creating? What sort of content formats?
All different types, and they all have kind of they all have different strengths. So for example, in my experience, the assets that drive the most in terms of click-through rate and getting people to the resource, the easiest ones to get people to a resource to get some value, things like swipe files make it so much easier. If people feel if you can write an ad that says we're going to give away X number of templates that drove X results for this brand, did a lot of them at Cognism. I think we've done similar for Rocket SaaS. It's a really, really appealing offer to a buyer. It's it means you're immediately, the moment you click, you know exactly what you're getting on the other side. So I think in terms of that kind of end result, we're trying to create a really strong ad that drives a lot of traffic to the website. And it's a really kind of low touch first experience with a buyer. Things like swipe files can work really well.
And is that, if it's ungated, is that top of funnel? And if you gate it, is it middle of funnel? Can it be top of funnel if it's still gated?
Yeah, this is where all the definitions start to get a bit muddly, basically. Yeah. But I would always argue that, in my opinion, that if it's a educational resource and the goal is purely to give value to the buyer, make them aware of who we are and just help solve their problems, I would argue that it's top of funnel content.
Yeah, and also going back to the question of, I want data, I don't want opinions, I want facts as to what's worked and what's not worked. And for those marketers that have, listened to thought leaders and experts across LinkedIn for the last sort of 5 years or so, most marketers will tell you that gating top of funnel content like swipe files and trying to gate ebooks and white papers rarely results in revenue. It rarely you're forcing someone to enter their email address to get an ebook. It rarely turns into someone then eventually being funneled to do a demo. You're much better off ungating, meaning far more people consume the content, and then they will funnel themselves and be pushed along with retargeting ads that we're going to get to in a minute, is generally the best play. That's widely accepted in I think B2B SaaS marketing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's become like, obviously maybe 15, 20 years ago, like gated content, and still today is a massive piece of like what B2B does every day. I think that's become a lot less prevalent over the last few years because people have started to recognize buying dynamics in B2B a lot more. And so the idea that someone's just going to convert on a piece of content and then they're ready to go, sales can chase them up and just call them. The conversion rates from that tend to be weaker. I think it can still have a place in people's mix from time to time, but ultimately, like from my point of view, if we've got the ability to share the content and get it more widely consumed, I think that's going to create a much more positive experience for the buyer and probably fits into actually how people buy a lot more naturally than trying to force them into kind of this artificial experience.
Yeah, the biggest downside of that is it's a long-term play and you get very few results at the beginning. You get no like quick wins. You can go like 3 months and you've got no MQLs, no SQLs, and you're just praying that it's going to work. And if you've got the wrong strategy, then you're in trouble. So you have to be confident and you have to give it time, which often your CEO doesn't give you. But all right, well, that's the top of the funnel. So to summarize, we're creating educational content. We talked about the different types of content format. We're not trying to get conversions at this stage. We're trying to get people to align with the problem that they've got on their mind. They connect our brand with that problem. They consume some of our content for free. They begin to know us and like us and trust us. So using the power of LinkedIn retargeting ads, there's like a cookie that goes onto that. Every single person that's engaged with the ads kind of goes onto their browser. Therefore, LinkedIn knows that you've kind of shown an expression of interest. So now we can start to retarget them to show them what's called, or what's often referred to as middle of the funnel ads. So let's move on to that. How do we define middle of funnel ads? What types of ads do we need to create? What content do we need to create to kind of support those ads?
Yeah, cool. So yeah, again, this is where we kind of come into like the funnel chat. I'm sure there'll be people like, that's not middle, that's not top. But I think for the purpose of this conversation, it's 100% relevant. So when we're talking about middle of the funnel here, what we're sort of talking about is, particularly in a LinkedIn sense, when you have someone who at the top of the funnel, so you've got your top of funnel campaigns, they've had that initial touch point, like you just mentioned. Now we've kind of even maybe they've been to the website, they've engaged with our ads, they've had some kind of experience with us, they're aware of who we are, they have some degree of knowledge. So what we might typically do is then enter them into a remarketing audience where we can serve a different type of content, which is what we're going to talk about now, middle of funnel content. When I talk about middle of funnel content and when we talk about it internally at the agency, so what I like to think about is, what are all of the questions that a buyer could potentially have about our product or our service that could prevent them from either coming inbound and submitting like a demo request or a request in a meeting with sales, or having a good conversation with one of our salespeople? What are all the questions about our product that we'd want our buyer to know and have answers for? And so when I think about kind of the content we need, I'm thinking about things like social proof, like who else is using our product or service, like testimonials, case studies, your general kind of social proof assets. It's pretty kind of self-explanatory, but that's super important. You need people need to know that other people are using it, they're getting results from it, what those results look like, people like them. And then away from just social proof, there are kind of product marketing focused ads and angles and content that we want to be looking at. So things like us versus competitive alternatives and competitors more generally. So like, for example, in a lot of SaaS companies, you're going to be looking at things like comparing your service versus their status quo, the buyer, which can typically look like things like spreadsheets or manual processes. What does our product look like versus those processes, which is still an alternative in the buyer's mind. That's still an option for them. So comparing yourselves to them, comparing yourselves to competitors. So making very clear, why are you differentiated? What is your difference versus those competitors? And I think a lot of people take the tack with this type of kind of content of like why they're better. I think that's one option. I think it's much stronger to actually lean into what makes you different. And that's where you've got to have a really clear position in. What makes you different versus that competitor is going to be a lot more believable. And also it's going to be a lot more, it's going to be a lot stronger message than we've got X better feature, we've got X better this, X better that. Buyers are obviously defensive now. They don't necessarily believe your claims. Difference over kind of trying to communicate why you're better, I think resonates more. And then away from the kind of competitor and competitive alternative kind of content, you're going to be looking at things like how the product works or how the service works in practice. So things like interactive product tours, product demo videos, product kind of workflow, like animations, graphics, all things like that. How does it actually work in practice? So people can actually see it. They can understand it. I think that's like a real barrier actually for a buyer often, is that like we make promises in our advertising on our website, but to connect the dots between we promise this outcome and this is what our product does and actually seeing how it gets there is a big jump. So that sort of content can really, really help in terms of moving people along in their journey. And then away from that, so we've covered how it can work. ROI as well is a huge one. So like return on investment. Actually showing like how your product will deliver a return and expressing that either through some social proof assets, but also kind of like calculators, numbers, all those sorts of things. But yeah, that's kind of just a summary. I think in general, just answer those questions and make sure a buyer knows everything they need to know to be able to make their next step when they're ready.
Nice. And what about like lead magnets? So I've heard of lead magnets being described as the middle of the funnel. So a lead magnet being something where someone does enter their email address. So obviously we talked earlier about like not gating stuff, but some stuff you kind of have to gate naturally. So let's say, for example, someone's signing up to attend a webinar, or someone's signing up to attend a live event, or, you know, having to use an ROI calculator, something like that, or a scorecard, a quiz, that kind of thing. Would you say they fit in the middle of the funnel? Was that more?
I think depends on it. Again, it depends on how you're using it. Like it depends on what the goal of the content is and how, like, for example, an ROI calculator is a really good example where you could argue that is a middle of funnel asset, especially if you kind of position it around your product. So if you've got an ROI calculator for what your product delivers versus just kind of your general category, for example, then I see how that can be an indicator of an intent. And it also gives the buyer some knowledge about the product and answers a question like we were just talking about, answers a question for the buyer. I would say that, again, it does come back to what you're trying to do with that content. Like I try not to get too hung up on like the definitions, but I do think they can have a place.
More about the content type. Right. So if you're doing a webinar that was about how to solve a problem, that would be at the top of the funnel, whether it's gated or not, or it has to be gated if it's a webinar. But if it was a webinar about our product and this is a demo, or this is how this company achieved amazing results using our product, that would be more
most definitely.
So it's okay. So it's more of
the intent. I think is important. What you're trying to do with the content,
as opposed to the delivery vehicle. Yeah, got it. Okay, so we talked about different content types in the middle of the funnel. So what types of ad formats work best for the middle of the funnel? We said the top of the funnel is mainly single image ads. For the middle of the funnel, is it single image ads again? Is it other types of ad formats?
Yeah, this is where I actually think it gets interesting, where we can actually look at it a little bit differently to the top of the funnel. So again, it does come back to kind of what you're trying to achieve with the ad, which is going to be really important, but kind of a rule of thumb that I like to use with middle of funnel ads, particularly if I'm using remarketing. So if I'm using remarketing to reach these audiences, my main goal with middle of funnel ads, I am not, if someone converts off the ad, great, brilliant, that's job done. We're really happy with that. But what I'm actually trying to do more so is communicate all of the messages and the content that we just answer those questions. So my priority actually is to get the ads consumed by the buyer. So again, static image ads can actually work super well here still. Like you can still write a really good ad that communicates a message, like for example, around like you versus a competitor. You see them on LinkedIn all the time, kind of split down the middle, summarizing why you're different to that competitor, why you might have a superior feature set, whatever it would be. So static image ads can still work really well here. I think the really interesting ones to play with when it comes to middle of funnel ads though, can definitely be things like thought leadership ads. Thought leadership ads can be a really, really effective middle of funnel tool, particularly in remarketing. So
thought leader ads, for those who don't know, is not company ads. Thought leader ads are ads where you're essentially boosting a post by an individual. So let's say the founder of the business does a normal LinkedIn post, organic post, and you pump a bit of ad budget into that organic post so it gets seen by people who are not yet following that person. And you can use it the same as the normal LinkedIn ads, where you can say that post, boost it, and don't just boost it to anybody, or just a lot of the other platforms like Meta, they'll boost it to the friends of your friends kind of thing, which is
Kent or something.
Yeah, which may not be appropriate. I don't want my prospect's auntie to see it. But on LinkedIn, you can say boost this ad and only show it to CFOs at software companies of a headcount between 50 and 100. So you can be very specific. Right, thought leader ads. Carry on with that.
Which I love thought leader ads. I think they're a brilliant format. Like they're
cheaper.
Exactly. They're a brilliant ad, particularly like for lower budget LinkedIn campaigns, and also just generally like, obviously, if you have a thought leader in the business. So like you're obviously our example, like you have a big following, you're posting all the time, you get engagement on those posts, you know which posts are working. And then we have the ability to take those posts that we know the audience likes and then just guarantee, again, this is coming back to, this is where the power of LinkedIn comes in, guarantee distribution of those messages to our audience. For a business like ours, that's super powerful because we can get the knowledge from you that you have and your way of thinking about marketing to our audience all the time. And they understand exactly the way we think about marketing, which is really powerful for us. But equally for a software business, like a lot of software businesses are built on the backs of their founders brands, and also just in general kind of personal relationships between different companies in SaaS, etc. And I think what can be really powerful with thought leader ads is if you've got thought leaders in the business who are consistently sharing valuable content, you can get that content, one, to the audience and establish your expertise and your credibility in that space. And your credit, and again, it's about establishing your expertise in solving their problems. I think that's super important. It helps add some social proof to your business away from just kind of the product. But then equally as well, I think there's really tactical plays that you can kind of take away to subtly promote the product without actually having to sell the product. So like, a lot of people do it on LinkedIn. You'll see posts like, if I were a VP of finance at this company suffering from X problem, here's the steps that I would take. And then they do like a really value-led post that kind of break down exactly how to solve that problem. But it subtly kind of raises the solutions that their product has. And just obviously it kind of promotes the product, but without promoting the product. And I think that's super powerful. You can craft the posts in a way where you put out organically. You're not selling what your product, so you're not being salesy, you're not pitching in your organic stuff. But then as soon as you kind of post that, let it have its organic reach. And when the reach starts running out, you take that, you put it as a thought leadership ad, you add a link at the bottom to maybe your website, your demo page, whatever you choose to do as your next step. And then you've got ads that are going to your audience that will look organic, look like a normal post. And we know that they're successful anyway. And we can generate traffic from the link that we've just added.
Another thing that's interesting about thought leader ads and organic posts, a lot of the listeners may be familiar with the fact that when you do an organic LinkedIn post, if you put a link to your website or any external website that's not LinkedIn, the algorithm will punish you. And your organic post will not be seen by half as many people as a normal post. The reason for that is because LinkedIn does not want you to leave the LinkedIn platform. So if you put a link to your website, don't be surprised when you get like 2 likes and it's seen by 50 people. When you do a normal post with no link, it gets 20 likes and it's seen by 1,000 people. That is the way it goes. So the way to put a link in your post and for it still to be seen by loads of people that you care about that are in your target audience is to boost that post with thought leader ads. So that's what I do when I do a post, to do a shameless plug of Rocket SaaS, to say we're a great marketing agency. Click here if you'd like to book a free discovery call. And then I put the link into our website. I know that if I don't boost that with thought leader ads, it's not going to get seen by hardly anyone.
No.
So I just put a couple of £100 into it, make sure it gets boosted, and then it will get seen. And that does actually generate a lot of leads. I've actually skipped to the bottom of the funnel here because that's a bit of a bottom of the funnel ad.
This is where it all merges. It's all the funnel. This is what I think. The funnel is a concept that helps us like understand
categories.
Yeah, it's a concept, and the things overlap. We've talked about in the pod before, like quite often for a buyer, there might not be they don't go through top, middle, bottom, but it helps us organize our activity. It helps us organize what we're doing.
Yeah. Marketing is overwhelming. Business growth and scaling is overwhelming, particularly marketing, particularly with all the AI tools and different philosophies and ideas and things being thrown at you, particularly for a startup or a founder of a small business. It's just too much. It's too much. So you have to categorize and you have to break it down into bite-sized chunks.
Yeah.
And in marketing, the best categorization for me, I think you'll probably agree, is the understanding of the difference between the top, the middle, and the bottom of the funnel. Just take a step back, take a breath, look at your business. How good is my top of the funnel? How many blogs and podcasts and webinars and problem-solving bits of content have we got? Score my business out of 10 on that. Middle of funnel next. I'm going to score my business out of 10 at the middle of the funnel. How many case studies have we got? How many testimonials? How many competitive comparison things have we got? Then I'm going to score myself out of 10 on the bottom of the funnel. How good is our website? How good are our landing pages that we're going to get to in a minute?
Yeah.
And when you break it up like that, you will know where you need to focus on next, and you work on getting all three of those areas to 10 out of 10. And if you do, your business is going to fly. Whereas if you try and look at the whole thing, it's just like, whoa, I'm overwhelmed. Yeah. So breaking it down is very helpful. And there's other little breakdown things that we'll probably get into another pod. But top, middle funnel.
Just to round off the ad types for the middle funnel as well. The other couple ones that I'd want to mention, a big one actually, I think video in the middle of the funnel is super important.
Customer interviews?
Yeah, customer interviews, product kind of reels and short clips. And again, this kind of comes back to it depends on what you're trying to do with the ad. For me, when I look at the middle of the funnel, I want those messages consumed. I want our buyers to know things about our product and our brand so that they're more likely to consider us when they're ready to buy. So for me, I'll be looking at trying to get videos a video is it's a much richer format than just a static image ad. Static image ad can do the job, but you can communicate a lot more in a short video. And so you can really dive into things in terms of those questions that we were talking about, you versus competitors, social proof, all those things. You can deliver that in a much richer way, and you can get those messages across and make them really memorable. So that's what I'd 100% recommend. Things like static image ads has its role. Thought leader ads can be super important. I think video ads can be really, really powerful. And then away from that, I do still think as well, in a similar way to the video, carousel and document ads can be worth testing as well, just for getting messages consumed.
Brilliant. All right. So let's move on to the bottom of the funnel. But before we do, we'll recap. Top of the funnel, people have consumed it. They've learned how to solve a problem. They're starting to like us because we're helping them. Yeah. Then they've also
know who we are.
They know who we are. They've started to see some middle of funnel content. They've seen other businesses who have solved the problem that they have, and they've noticed that they solved it by working with us and our platform. They also can see how we're different to competitors that we're also starting to think about. So now they're in the mindset of, I might be ready to have a demo here. I'm about to have some conversations with my CEO, trying to open up the budget. I'm nearly there. Yeah. I'm at the bottom of the funnel.
Trigger.
Jamie, how do we pull that trigger at the bottom of the funnel?
When we get to the bottom of the funnel, I mean, a lot of it in terms of the content is self-explanatory, really. If someone's ready to buy at this point, like you just mentioned, they're having conversations with the CEO, the budget's there, they're ready to buy something. We need to give them a good offer. We need to get them into a meeting. If you're a sales-led company. So from our side, the main thing we're looking to do is, how do we make getting into a meeting as enticing as possible and as easy as possible? So the types of content you need to kind of accomplish that. So one, you're going to have a standard demo offer. Most of the time, you're going to have kind of a demo kind of flow, and you're going to kind of put it out there. I'd recommend trying to make that feel as valuable as possible, particularly in terms of the way you're advertising that in your ads and your landing pages. You want to be setting expectations about what's going to happen on the demo, what their obligations, what their no obligations are, hopefully no obligations, what the steps of the demo process look like, maybe feedback from other customers who have been through the demo process, saying how much they thought the process was valuable.
So is this all in the ad?
No, not
this
all.
Is the landing page?
Yeah, the landing page. So the ad's job is to just get them into the meeting. So what message is going to what offer, and what message is going to get them into the meeting. For a demo, again, if you're just promoting a standard demo offer, the landing page is going to do the job of setting expectations for what to expect, what the process is going to look like. If you have it, giving some social proof from people who enjoyed the demo process and thought that the sales process was really valuable, and just generally making the demo sound like a valuable use of their time. That's like a good practice.
So you will learn the following 3 things, or you will learn how to solve the following few problems, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's just trying to frame the demo as a valuable experience. So and one, being very clear on what's going to be talked about. So you'll see that on a lot of demo landing pages. We'll talk about your problems. We'll go through that. We'll then explore the solutions, et cetera, et cetera. I think if you can, what can be really helpful is trying to frame the demo as valuable by they're going to see something cool, or they're going to get some value from the meeting just by note of being on it. So one example from Cognism that I use a lot is we're going to explore kind of your TAM. We're going to go through kind of your segmentation. We're going to explore new markets for you, things like that. And they'll do that live on the call. And that's kind of a bit of it's insight that they wouldn't have had before. So trying to use framing kind of in that way can be helpful.
So that sounds like a bit of a consultative approach then. So if we're going to look at your total addressable market. We're going to go through this together. We're going to find you some insights and some data for your brand.
Yeah, I think it's just trying to make the demo sound not like we're going to get you on a call and we're going to sell to you.
Yeah. Well, the main Rocket SaaS bottom of funnel lead magnet is a free SaaS marketing strategy call with me. It used to be, would you like us to send you a proposal, fill out this form? And then it changed to be a free consultation with the founder of the business. And I will analyze your website, your marketing. We'll talk about your current LinkedIn ad problems, and I will give you free, no obligation advice. You do not have to go on and work with us. I only do 5 of these per month. And when we launched that, our leads tripled overnight. Because of that consultative approach. So I like that Cognism example.
I think
as well,
that's an important point that you raised as well. And it kind of lends itself to, say, if you are just running a standard, if you're a SaaS business right now and you're just running like a standard demo offer, testing different types of offers, like a strategy call. Something at Cognism that we did that was really successful was offering part of the product. So you'd get 25 free leads as a gateway into the product. So that was kind of an offer to start the sales process. You see lots of other ones like audits or done for you services, we'll set this up for you in 24 hours, etc.
So really selling it, One of my biggest the biggest pet peeve that I have at the bottom of the funnel is when I'm on a website and I click book a demo and a form pops up with just some fields and a title that says book a demo. Or I land on a web page that's just a form with book a demo at the top. It doesn't tell me anything about the demo. It doesn't tell me how long it is. Doesn't tell me who it's going to be with. Doesn't tell me what I'm going to learn. Doesn't tell me anything. It's lazy. Just because they click the book a demo button, they still need to be convinced to fill out the form. Your Google Analytics will tell you that you are getting a lot of people clicking on the book a demo page and they're not filling out the form. That's because they're not being enticed enough. So everything you've said there of you need to sell the demo and try and wrap it up like an offer, maybe like a consultation type thing, is going to increase the leads.
Lots of different ways to approach it, but I think that's important. Is get the frame right, make it sound valuable, test different types of offers, and that's the content you need. And obviously that what comes with that, we'll probably get onto the ad types in a sec, but just landing pages that are well designed, the copy's tight. Messaging is really crisp and clear. All of that stuff is really important at the bottom of the funnel. You want it to be as easy as possible for that person to know this is going to be a good meeting for me. I'm going to take you up on an offer. Yeah.
Okay, so obviously the shape of a funnel is wide at the top and very pointy and narrow.
Sadly.
Sadly. Well, sadly from a number of leads point of view, but good from a point of this conversation in terms of it's relatively straightforward in terms of what you need to create. At the top of the funnel, there are so many different things that you can create on podcasts and webinars and emails and guides and blah, blah, blah. Middle of the funnel, there's a few different things, social proof and competitive stuff. At the bottom of the funnel, it's relatively straightforward. There's not too many different things you need to do. You just need a really good offer and a really good landing page. Is that a good kind of summary?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's the fundamentals at the bottom of the funnel. You need a good offer. You need good pages to capture that offer. And then in terms of like your actual, your ads, like that you're running in LinkedIn, so if we're ready to go on to that, I think there's certain ad types that work really well for bottom of the funnel.
Single image?
Oh, mate, Old Faithful. Old Faithful.
The Old Faithful.
Yeah. Again, single image does work well. I mean, to be honest though, if you look at it through a logical lens, similar to top of the funnel, like if you're trying to get, so at the top of the funnel, if you're trying to get someone to a resource, you're trying to drive a click. If you're trying to get someone to a demo page or somewhere to capture their interest, you need them to get a click.
You mean convert?
Yeah, convert. Yeah. Someone to click through, to convert, you need to click through.
The form.
So the static image ad is a very good format for just getting the click through, getting them onto the page, getting them onto the demo page, getting them into a form. So a static image ad works really well. I think it can be, again, like you can write a really enticing like offer ad. There was an ad that a colleague of mine made at Cognizant that worked like a dream. It was a brilliant ad, to be fair. You might have seen it across a few different companies now. People have used it in similar ways. It was kind of like I think it was based on Instagram, to be fair. It was like a sensitive content kind of blurred image. And it was like sensitive content and it kind of blurred the background and it made it look like there was like something that shouldn't be there.
Not safe for work.
And then it was, exactly. And then it was like sensitive content. And I think the copy underneath just the sensitive content icon was this data sample contains B2B quality B2B data that other data providers will find hard to match. And it was like, claim your free data sample. And that absolutely crushed it. That ad absolutely crushed it.
Because that had an offer in there.
Yeah, an offer in there. You're going to get a free data sample. It's a great creative. The creative captured attention. Yeah. And then, got people through to the page and worked very well.
Brilliant. Okay. So have we summarized the bottom of the funnel well? Anything else to add there?
All I'd add is just
conversation ads, native ads.
All I'd add is the ad types. If you're going to go bottom of the funnel, there's not as many static image ads, conversation ads, which is a bit like having an email come to your inbox and it's automated as multiple steps. Can work really well. It's very direct. It comes from a person in your business.
So on autopilot, on automation, the founder of the business will send a DM to that person that clicked on the middle of the funnel ad. So it can be done in the retargeting play to be like, hey, I mean, it could even say like, hey, notice you've been on our website. Can you let you say things like that?
Yeah, of course.
You can presume if they've been, hey, see, you've been on our website. Anything that I can help you out with? Did you find what you were looking for? Could be as simple as that, or could be a bit more aggressive. But
I'd always recommend going with a strong offer at the beginning. People like they skim and so get to the point. But conversation ads can be really strong at the bottom of the funnel. And then the other thing I'd recommend is for a lot of brands, decreasing the friction and using a LinkedIn lead gen form. Doesn't always work for all types of businesses, but it makes it easier for someone to submit a demo form or submit an offer form. It basically is a native ad in LinkedIn where you click the ad and a form appears within LinkedIn without leaving the platform, pre-populated.
Yeah, I know LinkedIn want you to use that because, as I said earlier, it means you don't leave the platform.
Yeah.
So sometimes they can be cheaper, can't they?
Yeah. Sometimes it can lead to lower quality leads because it's less friction. But particularly if you've not got like a really high converting landing page yet, I think it can be really worthwhile to get leads and start to validate if an offer's working, because it really decreases the friction, makes it easier for people to convert. So it can be worth testing. Yeah,
got it. Cool. Well, that is a very good summary of the top, middle of funnel, different types of ad content that you can create. So I like that. We are going to wrap up part 1 here. Remember, this is a 3-part series of how to get the most out of your LinkedIn ads. Hopefully we've given you inspiration in terms of what content to create, what ads to create to drive people to that content, what types of ad formats you should be creating. So if you were doing this as a workshop, you've kind of created all those ads, created all that content. And the next episode, part 2, which we're going to be launching next week, is going to talk to you about targeting and then ultimately launching those ads, putting them into action, into the retargeting funnel. And ultimately, the main part of the episode is going to be how do we get these ads seen by exactly the people that we want to see them. And it's not just going to be about selecting the filters in LinkedIn. That's like the most basic thing you can do, and it can be very broad. We're going to be talking about lots of clever technologies and intent data, exporting lists from external providers and just getting that into LinkedIn so that your ads are being seen by the best people. So Jamie, thank you so much for joining me for part 1, and I'll see you for part 2.
Looking forward to it.
And see you next week on the SaaS Marketing Weekly podcast.